In this video tutorial, we're going to be covering the accounts ledger, and we're going to go down to the menu and I'm going to explain each one of them. The top level is the account ledger we're looking at on this side of the screen. And basically what goes on in the accounts ledger is you're taking your account month, you're showing your bank starting balance. In this case, it would be $35,000. The subtotal income, and basically what this is the income that you're going to be getting off of your invoices. So that would be your sales screen where you're going to be doing that. Then you have your sum of expenses, which would be taken from the ledger on the expense screen. And then the taxes would also come in on your sales tax for your sales screen. Now the expenses, as far as purchases are concerned, would be a negative against your income. But what happens is that until you actually sell something, this information is really not updated as far as the purchase is concerned. If you think about it, it's money you spend, you put it into your inventory, and then the sales take it out on the back end. So you have a count amount here that the report's going to do for purchases, expenses, and sales. If you monitor these, they'll show you the cash flow in your main account budget in your ledger under the summary. Let's walk through an example of how this would work. You would first start in the account ledger, and you should already have your months already indicated in here when you create them in the different screens for the ledger itself. So you would create the ledger amount for that month for the new record. So you come over and you make a new record, and then you'd put in what it was for that particular month that you're working on. So January 1 of 2016 would be the first month in the year and so forth through the year. On January the 1st, 2016, you would check your bank balance on the first of the month, and you would put the balance in for the starting balance of the month. Next thing you would do is you would run your income report, which would be your sales. And when you run your sales report, by clicking on this right here, the sales report would give you a summary at the bottom. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get the records for the period for that same month. So what you would do is you would do a find. You'd put in your January 2016 in here, and that would be January the 1st, or January 2016. That's the invoice date. Now that's not going to work as far as the actual total amount of dates. So what we're going to have to do, and I'm going to explain something we did already when we showed you the invoices, you want to take your sales invoice ID for the period of that time, and that would be starting with a greater than or equal to the starting invoice number, less than or equal to, and the ending invoice number. And what that's going to do is it's going to produce the report and summarize everything for that period during that month time for invoices. Now we just did this on the invoice report in the last tutorial, so you're going to be repeating that on this screen. And when you do that, you're going to end up with all the invoices for that month, and we're going to repeat the same kind of a thing when we go down to the next report. I'm going to just cancel out of this one so we can see it come back. And we have one and the number of invoices. Now I'm going to point something out that I did in here that I left this available to edit on. You do not edit these in this screen. What you do is you only do it in the find mode. So you would go ahead and click the find and then edit that in there. Do not start out by putting the find in and the code for the greater than or equal to before you start the find. And of course, you should see the invoice date when you actually run these. They should show up each individual invoice date. So if you see one that pops in and say it's January, then you have something going on that's incorrect as far as the sequence of your invoices, and you need to check that in your invoices and make sure that somebody didn't enter an incorrect date, because it should sequence from the first of the month's first invoice through the end of the month's last invoice. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's go from sales. And now what we're going to do is go to purchase. And it's very much the same kind of a thing. You can edit here, but do not edit at this time because you do not need to do it or edit this number. You would do the start, find, go ahead and put in the range of purchase orders for the month and repeat the same thing we did on sales, and then get your summary number at the bottom. Now on sales and purchases, you should be writing down all this information down here. For example, the PO subtotal. If any shipping is involved, you put the shipping in because that's a cost against your expenses. The PO total would be then in there, including the summary total for the shipping. Then if you have any RMAs and there's a negative number in here, for example, If something has been pulled out or is on hold, take that number out of the total, or it would come over here as a sum of all payments minus anything that's in an RMA. And you can tell if there's RMAs because each record that shows up here, if it has an RMA pending, it'll have a yes. If there's no RMA pending, it'll say no. Or if it was one that was pending and it was finished, either one way or the other as far as items being returned or a cash return to you, then you would put in done and show the difference in, say, for example, minusing one of the items in the list of the sum quantity ordered would produce a less than the total amount of invoices that was supposed to be purchased. For in this case, you also want to be looking at, did you actually have a balance? If you have no balance, did you also add anything in there? For example, do you have a quantity? If you don't have a quantity in there, you need to have a quantity, or that's going to be a bogus number. So you may have to wait a few days to clear out some of the shipments that are coming in for that month in order to run this report. So if you don't have a received value of a quantity received, then you need to make sure that if you have any short, in this case, there would be a short number one, and that would tell you that you're missing some of them. If you ordered 3 and you received 3, then it should show the total amount over here as the received amount times the amount that you ordered, and that should give you the sales total, the line total. So walk through these and make sure that everything balances correctly. You can just scroll down through them for the month and make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be and the numbers balance out like they're supposed to. Now, if you have an RMA pending, you probably want to hold off your report and make sure that you contact that vendor, whoever that vendor is that you bought it from, and make sure that they're going to either clear it or post it or give you back a value for the item that was either short shipped or the item that is missing. So you want to go ahead and take and clear all those out before you run your report. But it does give you the option to make sure that when you're running through this ledger report that everything does balance correctly and all the issues that might be in there are cleared out. Same thing on the invoices. If you have balances that are due and you haven't been having paid, then those will show for the next month, and you should carry them over as showing the payment in the next month. Okay, let's go to the next one on the ledger report. We've done sales, purchase. Let's look at expenses. Very much the same kind of a thing. Do not edit this. Go ahead and start your find. Put in there the expense month, February 2016. You don't need to change anything in here. Basically, you're going to be looking at all the items that are expenses that you're spending money on. And these may be, and when you're looking at expenses, these are items that are not being paid for by outside income. For example, if you have expenses, they are not going to be returned to you from the sale of anything. So what you need to do is separate this information and then deduct it from your monthly total for the amount of expenses, and that'll tell you what your income balance should be. So you're going to take this total at the end of your report and show the expenses deducted from the grand total in the sales ledger. So if you go up here and your month account ledger, your month total is balance sum total of income, sum of expenses, and then you need to take the purchases and deduct the purchases from the grand total, and that would be this number net for the month income. Then take out your purchases, and that would be your total for the month. But it gives you each individual report as you run through the sales ledger, the purchase, and expenses, so you can get your summaries each month to see where your cash flow is at. Let's take a look at one last thing. Depending on the records that you have in selection at the time, if you did a find for whatever period, this chart over here is going to show you a cash flow as far as up and down. Let's go ahead and show that. For example, in January, February, and March, you can see where your cash flow was based on the month. This is 1/1/2016, 2/1, and 3/1. Now, if your records in selection are more months than that, for example, it's the next quarter, or maybe it's 6 months, then you're going to get more indications on here, and the chart will show more of the income. If you run it for the entire year, you're going to have 12 individual markings on here and 12 different months showing down here on the banking months. So this is a nice little chart to see where your cash flow is for the entire period that you're looking for. 1 month, a quarter, 6 months, 3/4 of the year, or the full year. If you have any questions about how this works or how you can make it work better, contact me and at the developer support site. by clicking on this little guy right here, or going to the developer's site by clicking over here and going down to developer support and clicking on that. And as before, you can see all the videos by clicking on this particular video help right here. Okay, thank you for taking all these videos. If you have any questions, contact developer support. Thank you.